Hello, my name's Jane, and I am a medical intuitive. And today I'm going to talk about something not medical but it's intuitive. And it is all about the Mandela Effect. So, um, yeah, I wanted to talk about this because the Mandela Effect has been something kind of on my radar for, I don't know, a couple of years. And at first, a lot of it was, oh, well, the people who were saying this. Okay, so let me tell you first what the Mandela effect is. The initial kind of like awareness of this had to do with Nelson Mandela, and there were a lot of people who were children in the 90s and the 80s who remembered Nelson Mandela going to jail, and then we were told, a lot of us were told that he was killed, right? So, and then years and years later, they're like, oh, he's getting out of jail. And so it was very confusing. And so that was where the terminology was coined, where there was this like disconnect between what we remember and what we have been told now, years and years later, about what we remember. And so a lot of people, and there's a lot of other ones, you can look them up. The Berenstain Bears versus Berenstain Bears, Oscar Mayer versus Oscar Mayer. Um, yeah, so those are all things that are a part of this kind of phenomenon. And on one hand, there are people who are crying, like, I remember this as a child. I remember this. And then there's a lot of other people who are like, yeah, but you were a child. So maybe you're wrong. Um, which is kind of potentially a gaslight, right? Or it could be possible that the children were actually remembering it wrong. But the number of people having those individual instances of those memories um, lends it to being like extra weird, right? And I'm not a conspiracy theorist at all. That is not my bag. I like to think a good problem. Um, I like to see people's logic and people's arguments and where their point of view is coming from. But I'm not a bandwagoner. I don't, and especially with like things that are all theoretical, right? Like if it's not actually impacting my life or the population as a whole, like why is it that we're even focused on some of these things, right? Um, so a lot of other people, so between the two, it's this mismatch between memory of reality at the time the memory was stored and reality today. There's a mismatch, and a lot of people who were young at that time are crying conspiracy theory of, you guys just changed this stuff that was like seemingly insignificant. Like, why did it matter a big deal whether, well, it did matter that Nelson Mandela didn't pass away, but why does it matter the spelling of Oscar Mayer? Why does it matter the spelling of the Berenstain Bears, right? And so like, why? Why would you tell us these things that we remember, but now you've changed this? Like, this makes no sense. And I've kind of been playing with this concept of timeline jumping, timeline merging, and things like that. So then I came upon, and I'm late to the game, sorry guys. I came upon this, the newest one is that Ed McMahon was never associated with the Publishers Clearinghouse. Ed McMahon was an icon from what I remember with the Publishers Clearinghouse. And this was true. And you can look this all up. I'm going to link some of my references in the notes here, but Epic Man was the Publishers Clearinghouse, right? And now we have this new information that says No, he was associated with something called American Family Publishers, which I haven't heard of that place before, right? Um, and so there I was, down a rabbit hole. Obviously, you get in the bowels of the internet and you're like, what? And I did. And so I found different posts from different people. Somebody posted an envelope from the Publishers Clearinghouse from 1992. It had Ed McMahon's face on it. And then even Carrie Underwood was like, thank you for speaking the truth, because this is crazy that this would happen. Like, people, this is getting big attention because Ed McMahon was the Publishers Clearinghouse. You saw those commercials multiple times a day. And now there's this like sudden rewire, this sudden rewrite of what a lot of people knew to be reality. Now, sorry, my Healy just finished its cycle. if you have a Healy, they're great. Now, here's the thing. Within some of those comments, Ed McMahon's own daughter posted and said, no, my dad never worked with Publishers Clearinghouse. And someone else posted, I worked for Publishers Clearinghouse in the 90s. Ed McMahon was never associated. It was this other guy. I don't remember the other guy's name. And this made it so clear to me that it is not truly a gaslight. It is not a conspiracy theory. This is two separate timelines coming together. Okay? And I say that not to scare you, but because I have a solution to this. But this is literally two separate timelines merging at one point. Okay? There was a version of history where Ed McMahon worked for Publishers Clearinghouse. There was a version of history where Ed McMahon worked for American Family Publishers and some other guy was the face of Publishers Clearinghouse. Okay? And for whatever reason, those two timelines got together and there was enough in common that we were close enough where everything else is the same. It's not a big deal. Okay? But that little mismatch has created this completely different set of it just shows where this disconnect is. It shows us that there's something else going on. Okay? Now, I'm not going to point any fingers. The earliest post I could find was from July 11th, 2022. And 5 days before that, they had turned on the CERN Super Collider for the first time in like 10 years. So, maybe, maybe not. But I have even seen direct impact in some of my own meditations on the timeline. I have met people who are timeline jumpers and they just feel like they're out of sync with the world all the time. And when we get them into their highest timeline, then their life just flows better. So for me, having multiple timelines and all of that isn't such a crazy concept because I've worked with people who have experienced some of these shifts, but because the brain is used to compensating for stuff that it doesn't understand, then we don't see it. It doesn't make sense. We just go, I must be crazy, I'm going to ignore that. But something as prominent and as iconic as Ed McMahon being associated with Publishers Clearinghouse, you can't forget that. And it was for decades that he was with them. And now the fact check is like, oh no, this is wrong. He was never with them, blah, blah, blah. But the biggest assumption that we are going on is that there's only one timeline. If we assume there's only one timeline, then we can point fingers and say, you're wrong and you're wrong. But the truth is we're merging timelines. Energy is speeding up. The world is speeding up. We are in a state of things kind of shifting and moving in really big ways energetically, and we cannot ignore some of these things that are happening. And we can't brush them off as like, oh, I was like too young to remember the truth, or maybe I'm crazy. The only thing that makes sense is that there's two separate timelines, merging. And the only thing that makes sense is that there's more than two. There's so many different timelines that are coming together like an estuary. Okay, all of that to say, as I think in the next 5 to 10 years, everyone's going to feel crazier and crazier because of not only like this merging timeline stuff, but also because of all of the technology things and things that the AI technology can do, how realistic they can make things. We're going to feel crazier and crazier. And the only way to let go of feeling crazier, the only way to like truly understand what is going on is to heal up all of the stuff from the past that you believe is true and it's not true. Because you have got to be on a solid foundation today in order to make it through whatever shifts we are going through, because we are going through major shifts on a population level. When it comes to the collective unconsciousness, like really digging in to clearing massive things, okay? It started around 2012. No one's talking about that either, but it's all like a big, oh, nothing happened. Things happened. It wasn't like the end of the world, but what happened was that there was this huge food movement. Remembering, like, go back to the earth, eat food from the earth, pay attention to that, pay attention to your body, pay attention to your emotions. And that just sort of evolved. The coaching sphere exploded, and not just because the internet got bigger, but also because people were looking for the answers. Okay, we're raising their individual vibrations collectively and releasing all of this other stuff. And so we're able to invite in new things. Well, it's getting to a point where we might not be able to catch up unless we are really intentionally doing a lot of stuff right now, as much as possible. So, all that to say that yes, multiple timelines are real. And if you think I'm crazy, that's fine. You don't have to worry. You don't have to agree with me. But multiple timelines are real. They can intertwine. They can work with each other. And you have a version of you that is in all of them. And so you can access that higher self. That's what that's called. The higher self is one that exceeds across all time and all space. And all time is very important right now. So I would like to invite you to take a moment, do as much as you can to do your clearing stuff, whether it's journaling, whether it's, just scribbling, whether it is just self-love. Accept yourself for who you are and become who you're meant to be, because that is the only version that's going to make it through all of this. Okay. Well, I hope you appreciated this video. I think that's all I've got to say about that. But if you need anything, if you're feeling like you're crazy, you're not crazy. If you're feeling like you're being gaslit, you may be and you may not be. What matters the most with all of this is that you love yourself and that you care about yourself. And you let go of whatever it is out there that may be impacting you today, because today is the day for you to be you. Be you. Just be you. And I can tell you about this in another video, but the sky is rife with be yourself. Astrology is like, be yourself, do it. You can do it. Today's the day to be yourself. We just had this giant full moon in Aries. Aries is all about being you. You just go dance naked in the moonlight. Like, whatever it is that makes you happy, be you. It is literally the only way you're going to make it through. And even if you don't make it through, whatever that looks like, if you, between now and then, are just yourself and love yourself for who you are, then it doesn't matter what making it through means. What matters is that you appreciated your time and you loved yourself while you were on this planet. Okay, have a wonderful day, and I will see you later.